You wake up and nothing feels wrong exactly, but nothing feels right either. Your life isn't falling apart. You have routines, responsibilities, maybe even success by conventional standards. Yet there's this pervasive sense that you're watching everything in grayscale while everyone else sees color. This isn't sadness. Sadness has weight, texture, presence. This is something else entirely, a peculiar emptiness, a flatness that sits beneath your chest like stagnant water. You're not crying, you're not breaking down. You're just not alive, not really. And here's the paradox. You're busy, constantly moving, checking boxes, fulfilling obligations. Your calendar is full, your days are packed, but inside, you're completely still, frozen. It's as if you're running on a treadmill at full speed while somehow remaining in the exact same place. You scroll endlessly. You binge shows you forget immediately. You say yes to plans you don't want, then feel nothing when they're over. Coffee doesn't energize you. Weekends don't restore you. Even things you once loved feel like obligations now. Tasks to complete rather than experiences to savor. And here's what's most unsettling. You can't point to what's wrong. There's no tragedy, no crisis, no clear enemy to fight. Just this persistent, inexplicable apathy, like living in a house where all the lights work but nothing feels illuminated. Most people call this boredom, this listlessness. They tell you to find a hobby, take a vacation, try something new. But you've tried, you've done the things, and the flatness remains, maybe even deepens. That's because this isn't the kind of boredom that comes from having nothing to do. This is the boredom that comes from doing everything except what you're supposed to be doing. Carl Jung, one of the most profound explorers of the human psyche, spent his life studying this exact phenomenon. And what he discovered might disturb you. This boredom, this dispirited numbness, this sense of life in grayscale. It's not a problem to solve. It's a message, a signal from the deepest part of you, screaming in the only language it knows. Your soul isn't bored, it's suffocating. And the numbness you feel isn't emptiness, it's energy, massive amounts of it, flowing in the wrong direction entirely. So, how can you tell if this is you? True existential boredom isn't just a vague feeling. For Jung, it was a clear symptom of misdirected psychic energy, and it leaves unmistakable signs, clues that reveal exactly where your life force is leaking. The first clue is a strange paradox in your motivation. You procrastinate on your own dreams, but never on your obligations. Think about it. Work deadlines. You meet them. Bills, paid on time, the world's expectations. You always deliver. But that book you wanted to write, that skill you wanted to learn, that future you whispered to yourself at 3 a.m., it all sits untouched, gathering dust while you take care of everyone else's priorities. This isn't laziness. Lazy people procrastinate on everything. You're selective. You have energy for what's expected, but none for what's authentic. Your battery is full for the performance, empty for the purpose. And deep down, you know exactly what this means. You're living someone else's priorities while your own slowly suffocate. The second sign is that you use distractions as an escape from the void. Scrolling isn't relaxation, it's anesthesia. Binge-watching isn't entertainment, it's dissociation. That third drink isn't celebration, it's erasure. You're not seeking pleasure. You're fleeing from something. From what? From the deafening silence that emerges the moment you stop moving. Because when you're still, when the noise stops, you feel it. The absence, the hollowness, the sense that beneath all the motion, nothing is actually happening, so you don't get still, ever. You build a life of constant stimulation, not because these things fulfill you, but because they prevent you from noticing how unfulfilled you are. Jung called this the flight from the self. You're not addicted to your phone or Netflix or whatever vice you've chosen. You're addicted to not being alone with who you've become. And this leads to the third, and perhaps most painful symptom. You feel cynical about other people's passions. Someone talks about their excitement for a project, their enthusiasm for a cause, their genuine love for their work, and something in you recoils. Not with jealousy exactly, but with a kind of bitter disbelief. Must be nice, you think. They'll figure it out eventually. That won't last. This cynicism isn't wisdom. It's not you being realistic or mature. It's protection, because their aliveness reminds you of your deadness. Their flow highlights your stagnation. And rather than face the question of why you don't feel that way about anything anymore, you dismiss it. You tell yourself passion is naive, purpose is a delusion, meaning is just a story we tell ourselves. But Jung understood. When you mock aliveness in others, it's because you've forgotten what being alive feels like in yourself. Finally, the fourth sign is a fatigue that sleep doesn't cure. 10 hours of sleep, and you wake up exhausted. You're tired at your bones, not your muscles. Coffee doesn't help. Rest doesn't restore. Vacations feel like more work. This isn't physical fatigue. Your body isn't depleted. This is something deeper, more ancient. Jung called it fatigue of the soul. It's what happens when your life force, your psychic energy, flows constantly in directions that don't nourish you. Imagine a river forced to run uphill. It can do it, but the effort is immense, unnatural, exhausting. That's you. Every day, you're pushing your energy toward things that don't want it, away from things that desperately need it. And the body, wise as it is, responds the only way it can, by shutting down. Not because you're lazy or weak, but because it's trying to stop you from continuing on a path that's killing something essential. So if 3 or 4 of these symptoms describe your life, you're not bored in any ordinary sense. You're experiencing what Jung identified as one of the most dangerous conditions of modern existence, a complete misdirection of psychic energy. Your life force is flowing, powerfully even, but toward deserts instead of gardens. And the numbness you feel isn't the absence of energy. It's the presence of energy trapped, dammed, diverted from its natural course. Which brings us to the question, what exactly is this energy, and why does it matter so much where it flows? Here's the truth that changes everything. You're not unmotivated. You're not defective. You're not broken by some modern disease of apathy. What you're experiencing, according to Carl Jung, is something far more specific, and crucially, far more reversible. You have psychic energy, massive, powerful, constantly flowing. But it's flowing in the wrong direction entirely. Jung spent decades studying what he called libido, not in Freud's sexual sense, but as the total life force, the energy that animates consciousness, drives action, creates meaning. And his central discovery was this: psychic energy doesn't disappear. It can't. It only redirects. So when you feel numb, empty, bored to the point of despair, it's not because you lack this energy. It's because it's being channeled toward things that can never nourish you. Think of your soul as a river. This isn't poetry, it's mechanics. A river has tremendous force, constant movement, the power to carve canyons and sustain entire ecosystems. But only when it flows where it's meant to flow. Redirect that river toward a desert, force it through artificial channels, dam it behind concrete walls, and something catastrophic happens. The water doesn't disappear, it stagnates. It becomes a swamp, breeding disease, choking life, turning something that should give vitality into something that poisons everything around it. This is what's happened to your psychic energy. You wake up tired because you're spending all your life force maintaining a version of yourself that isn't real. You feel numb because your energy is directed toward goals you don't actually want. You're bored because you're brilliantly, exhaustingly engaged in living a life that has nothing to do with your life. Jung's insight here is surgical. When the river of your energy flows toward its natural destination, toward what your deepest self actually wants, needs, craves, it generates life, passion, vitality, that feeling of being propelled by something larger than willpower. But when that same river is diverted towards social expectations, family scripts, cultural ideals, the endless performance of normalcy, it doesn't just stop flowing. It creates a psychological swamp, stagnation, rot, the death of aliveness. And here's the part that no one tells you. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. Society didn't just suggest you divert your river, it trained you to do it from birth. Be this, want that, succeed here, fit there. Until the original course of your energy, the natural direction of your soul, became so overgrown with should and must and have to that you forgot it even existed. The compass of psychic energy is simple. What genuinely energizes you is where your life force wants to go. What drains you, no matter how successful or good it looks, is where you're forcing it against its nature. You're exhausted because you're spending all day, every day, pushing a river uphill. So the real question becomes, what's doing the diverting? What's blocking your energy from flowing where it naturally wants to go? If your psychic energy is a river being diverted, something must be causing the diversion. Jung identified several internal structures that silently steal your life force and redirect it away from where it needs to go. These aren't external obstacles. They are parts of your own psyche, operating automatically and draining you without your awareness. Let's focus on the three main thieves. The first thief, the persona. The persona is the social mask you wear, the acceptable version of yourself you present to the world. And here's what makes it so dangerous. It's not entirely false. It's you, or a version of you, carefully curated for survival in your specific social environment. The competent professional, the good son or daughter, the fun friend, the reliable partner, the person who has it together. These aren't lies, exactly. They're roles. And roles require energy, immense amounts of it, to maintain. Every morning, you put on the mask. You adjust your speech, your posture, your emotional expression to fit what's expected. At work, you're professional. With family, you're dutiful. With friends, you're easygoing. And each context demands a slightly different performance, a different allocation of energy toward being acceptable, likable, successful. Here's the theft. The more energy you pour into maintaining the persona, the less you have for anything authentic. The mask isn't content to exist. It demands constant maintenance. And because it's rewarded, because society validates, promotes, loves the persona, you keep feeding it. Until one day, you realize you've spent so much energy being who you should be that you have nothing left for who you are. Jung called this inflation of the persona. You don't just wear the mask, you believe you are the mask. And the real you, the one beneath, starves in silence. Now, if the first thief steals your energy to maintain a mask, the second thief steals it to keep a part of you locked in the basement. This second thief is your shadow. The shadow is everything you've rejected about yourself. Not just the bad parts, your anger, your selfishness, your darkness, but also the parts that simply didn't fit. Your wildness, your desires, your truth. From childhood, you learned what was acceptable and what wasn't. And what wasn't acceptable didn't disappear. It went underground, into the shadow. And here's the brutal part. Repression takes energy. Enormous, constant energy. Every time you suppress anger instead of expressing it, energy drains. Every time you deny a desire because it's wrong or inappropriate, energy drains. Every time you present a false self because the real one is too much, too weird, too raw, energy drains. You're not just hiding these parts, you're actively, constantly fighting to keep them hidden. Imagine holding a beach ball underwater. It takes effort, continuous, exhausting effort. And you can do it, for a while. But the ball doesn't stop pushing. It never stops. And neither does your shadow. You spend so much energy keeping it submerged that you have nothing left for actually living. And here's the cruelest part. The qualities in your shadow aren't just negative. Often, your deepest strengths are buried there too. Creativity you were told was impractical. Sensitivity you learned to call weakness. Assertiveness shamed into silence. These aren't flaws, they're your life force. And you're spending all your energy making sure they never see light. And if the shadow is the part of you locked in the basement, the complexes are the ghosts that haunt the house, forcing you to relive the same scene over and over. This third thief is the autonomous complex. Complexes are like psychological drainage systems, unconscious patterns that continuously siphon your energy into loops that go nowhere. Jung discovered that everyone has complexes, clusters of emotionally charged thoughts, memories, and associations that operate autonomously, triggered by specific situations. That voice that tells you you're never good enough, that's a complex. The pattern where you sabotage relationships just as they get close, that's a complex. The loop where you overwork to prove your worth, then collapse and feel worthless, that's a complex too. These aren't thoughts you choose. They're programs running in the background, draining processing power, consuming energy without producing anything useful. You're not thinking them, they're thinking you. And every time they activate, your psychic energy pours into them like water down a drain. A perfectionism complex drains energy into impossible standards. An inferiority complex drains it into constant comparison. An abandonment complex drains it into clinging or fleeing. And you're left exhausted, wondering why you can't seem to move forward, not realizing that your energy is being continuously siphoned into these unconscious loops. The complete theft. Here's how it works together. The persona demands energy to maintain your acceptable self. The shadow demands energy to repress your unacceptable self. And the complexes drain whatever's left into repetitive, unconscious patterns. Your river, your life force, isn't flowing toward passion, purpose, or creation. It's flowing toward maintaining masks, suppressing truth, and feeding loops that produce nothing. You're not bored because life is boring. You're exhausted because your entire psychic energy system is spending all its force on internal maintenance, on keeping up appearances, on fighting yourself. No wonder nothing feels alive. No wonder you're numb. There's no energy left for actual living. But here's the crucial realization. Once you understand where your energy is going, you can begin to redirect it. And that's exactly what Jung's methods allow you to do. Knowing where your energy goes is crucial, but knowing how to redirect it, that's the transformation. Jung didn't just diagnose the problem. He provided specific, actionable methods for reclaiming your life force and guiding it back to its natural course. These aren't quick fixes. They're practices, ways of being, tools for becoming the navigator of your own psychic river. And the first tool is not some grand, heroic act. It's the opposite. It's something you feel every day but have been taught to dismiss. The quiet whisper of curiosity. Jung believed that genuine curiosity is the soul's way of pointing you toward where your energy wants to flow. Not passion, that's too big, too intimidating. Curiosity, that small pull, that faint interest, that moment when something catches your attention for no logical reason. Most people dismiss curiosity. That's not practical. I don't have time. It won't lead anywhere. But Jung saw it differently. Curiosity is your psyche's compass, showing you the direction of your natural energy flow. When something genuinely interests you, not because it's useful or impressive, but because it simply pulls you, that's your river trying to flow where it's meant to go. The practice is deceptively simple. Notice what you're actually curious about, not what you think you should be curious about. What genuinely captures your attention, even for a moment. Maybe it's a topic, a skill, a question, a place. Maybe it's something embarrassing, impractical, weird. Doesn't matter. Then, and this is crucial, give it even 5 minutes of your actual energy. Not leftover energy, not exhausted energy, but real attention. Read one article, Watch one video. Take one small action in that direction. See what happens. What you'll discover is that genuine curiosity doesn't drain you. It energizes you. Even if it's useless, even if it goes nowhere, following your curiosity creates a felt sense of your energy flowing in its natural direction. And that feeling, that subtle sense of rightness, of ease, becomes your guide. Stop trying to find your passion. Start following your curiosity. The river knows where it wants to go. Your job is to remove the dams and let it flow. Following that thread of curiosity will inevitably lead you to a locked door inside your psyche. Behind that door is everything you've exiled from yourself. The second tool, then, is about having the courage to turn the key. This is the practice of shadow integration. Remember, your shadow holds not just darkness, but also the energy you're spending to repress it. Integration isn't about becoming your shadow. It's about stopping the fight, releasing the energy trapped in suppression. Jung's method was direct. Consciously acknowledge what you've rejected. Not to act on it necessarily, but to admit it exists. I have anger. I want things I've been told I shouldn't want. Parts of me don't fit the acceptable version. This isn't confession for forgiveness, it's recognition for integration. The moment you stop using energy to hide something from yourself, that energy becomes available for other things, for life. Here's the practice. Write down 3 things about yourself you've never said aloud. Things you judge, reject, or keep hidden. Qualities, desires, truths that don't fit your persona. Don't share them. Don't act on them. Just write them. Look at them. Say internally, this is also me. What happens is alchemical. The shadow doesn't need to be expressed. It needs to be seen. And the moment you see it, the moment you stop the exhausting work of pushing it down, energy floods back. Not chaotic, destructive energy, but life force. The same energy you were using to repress now becomes available to create. You'll notice the things you were most afraid of in yourself often contain your greatest vitality. Anger might be your boundary-setting strength. Selfishness might be your self-preservation. Darkness might be your depth. Integration isn't about becoming bad, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness has energy to spare. Tool 3, active imagination. This is Jung's most powerful and least understood technique, creating a direct dialogue between your conscious mind and your unconscious. It sounds esoteric, but it's remarkably practical. Your unconscious knows where your energy wants to go. The problem is, it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in images, symbols, feelings. Active imagination is the bridge. Here's how it works. Find a quiet space. Close your eyes. Instead of trying to empty your mind or relax, do the opposite. Invite an image to emerge. Don't force it. Don't visualize something specific. Just allow whatever wants to appear. It might be a figure, a landscape, a color, an animal, anything. Then, and this is the active part, engage with it. If it's a figure, ask it a question. Who are you? What do you want? What are you trying to tell me? If it's a landscape, explore it, move through it, see where it leads. The key: let the images respond on their own terms. You're not controlling this. You're not making up a story. You're observing what emerges and interacting with it, as if you're meeting with an autonomous intelligence, because you are. This is your psyche showing you, in its own language, where your energy is blocked, what it needs, where it wants to flow. Jung used this method himself during his most difficult periods. He would encounter inner figures, an old man, a young woman, various archetypal presences, and have conversations with them. They would tell him things his conscious mind didn't know, show him directions he hadn't considered, reveal where his life force was trying to go. Do this even once genuinely, and you'll understand. Your boredom isn't a lack of direction. It's an ignored direction. Your psyche has been trying to show you the way, through dreams, through symbols, through that persistent sense of wrongness. But you haven't learned to listen. Active imagination teaches you to listen. The practice of redirection. These three tools work together. Curiosity shows you the direction. Shadow integration releases the energy. Active imagination reveals the deeper path your conscious mind can't see. None of this is about finding your passion or discovering your purpose in some grand, final way. It's about moment-by-moment redirection. Today, you notice your energy flowing toward obligation. You consciously redirect it, even briefly, toward genuine interest. You feel yourself suppressing something true. You acknowledge it, integrate it, reclaim that energy. You sense your psyche trying to communicate. You listen, you engage, you follow. Over time, these small redirections compound. The river begins to remember its natural course, and slowly, without force, without willpower, you start to feel it. Life returning. Not happiness exactly, something better. Propulsion, movement, the sense that you're finally flowing in the direction you were always meant to go. And that brings us to what this all leads to, what it actually feels like when your energy flows where it's meant to flow. Let's be clear about what we're aiming for here. Because if you're expecting some arrival point, some moment when you've figured it out and can finally rest, you'll miss the entire point of what Jung discovered. The goal isn't happiness. Happiness is a mood, a temporary state that comes and goes based on circumstances. The goal isn't even fulfillment in the conventional sense. That idea that once you find your thing, you'll be complete, satisfied, done. The goal is propulsion. Propulsion is what happens when your psychic energy flows in its natural direction, unimpeded by personas, unblocked by shadow repression, undrained by complexes. It's the felt experience of being moved by something larger than your small will, carried by a current you don't have to create or maintain. It just is. And you're in it, moving with it, alive in a way that doesn't require constant effort to sustain. This is what Jung meant by living in alignment with the self, the capital S self, the totality of who you are beyond ego, beyond social conditioning, beyond every mask and defense. When you're aligned with the self, life doesn't require you to push, it pulls you. You're not manufacturing motivation every morning. You're not forcing yourself to care. You're compelled naturally by your own energy flowing where it wants to go. It feels like being in a river that's finally moving downstream instead of fighting upstream. There's effort, yes. Navigation requires skill, awareness, constant adjustment. But the effort isn't against the current anymore. You're working with it, guiding it, riding it. And that makes all the difference. What this actually feels like. Imagine waking up and instead of that familiar dread or numbness, you feel something else. A quiet pull toward the day. Not excitement necessarily, though that comes sometimes, but a sense of direction. You know what matters to you today. You know where your energy wants to go. And even if the day includes obligations, responsibilities, mundane tasks, there's something underneath it all, a current. You're no longer performing your life. You're living it. The distinction is everything. Your relationships change. You stop managing them for approval and start engaging from genuine interest. Some relationships deepen immensely. Others fall away naturally, without drama, because they were built on the persona you're no longer maintaining. And you're okay with that, because you're too engaged in your actual life to waste energy on false connections. Your work changes. Maybe you keep the same job, but you approach it differently, finding ways to channel your genuine energy even within constraints. Or maybe the whole thing shifts as you realize you can't keep diverting your river towards something that was never meant for you. Either way, you stop feeling like you're betraying yourself for a paycheck. You find a way, gradually, imperfectly, to make your work part of your flow, not against it. Even your boredom changes. You still have moments of restlessness, dissatisfaction, that sense of Is this all there is? But now you recognize them for what they are: signals. Not signs that something's wrong with you, but messages that your energy is starting to drift off course again. You've learned to read the compass. You adjust, you redirect, you flow. The shift in mentality. Here's the transformation that has to happen. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone trying to reach a destination and start seeing yourself as a navigator of your own energy. Most people live like they're on a treasure map. X marks the spot. Get the right career, X. Find the right relationship, X. Achieve the right success, X. And once you reach X, you'll be done. You'll have arrived. You'll finally be able to rest, be happy, be enough. But that's not how psychic energy works. Energy is a river, not a destination. It's always flowing, always moving. And your job isn't to dam it up at some imagined endpoint. Your job is to ensure it flows cleanly, powerfully, in directions that generate life instead of stagnation. You're not trying to arrive. You're learning to navigate. This means you stop asking, "What should I do with my life?" and start asking, "Where does my energy naturally want to flow right now?" You stop looking for the one thing that will fix everything and start making 1,000 small adjustments, each one redirecting your river a little closer to its natural course. You become intimate with your own energy. You learn to feel when it's flowing and when it's blocked. You develop sensitivity to the thieves, the persona demanding energy, the shadow draining it, the complexes siphoning it, and you address them not as problems to solve once and for all, but as constant elements requiring constant navigation. The promise? If you do this, if you genuinely commit to redirecting your psychic energy toward its natural course, something fundamental shifts. That boredom, that numbness, that sense of life in grayscale, it doesn't just lessen, it transforms. Because you realize it was never boredom. It was your soul's way of telling you that the direction you were going was wrong. And now that you're adjusting course, now that you're flowing where you're meant to flow, that same energy that created numbness creates vitality. You're not suddenly happy all the time. Life is still life, difficult, uncertain, full of suffering and challenge. But you're propelled through it. You have movement, direction, that felt sense of being carried by something real, something that wants you to live, not just exist. And this, finally, is what Jung discovered and what you're beginning to understand. You were never broken. You were never defective. You were just a river forced to flow uphill. And every ounce of exhaustion, every moment of numbness, every second of boredom was your psyche screaming the same message: wrong direction, turn around, flow where you're meant to flow. Now you know. The question is, will you listen?